Modernity can be seen in all parts of society. Thus, there is no one true or best way to view modernity, only multiple perspectives and lenses in which to contextualize this concept. As such, parallel modernity is another way of seeing modernity through the lens of non-Western and non-Central communities. Modernity in these countries, such as third world countries, are seen to be driven by solidarity and compassion among one another. It gives premium to the roles and sectors each individual is a part of, and then collates these into the total effort of the community, which leads towards community-led development. Such roles and sectors, when viewed in the lens of politics, economics, and social culture, provide information as to how modernity can be achieved through solidarity, participation, and cooperation, both internal and external to said community. Therefore, parallel modernity offers us a new perspective, a new lens to view modernity through the marginalized, through the oppressed, through the stigmatized, as they continue to fight against the common notion of modernity dominated by the Western world. Through their solidarity, through their cooperation, and through their togetherness, they are able to form ideologies, they are able to form practices, programs, policies, and projects that will benefit the community, as well as allow them to gain a more equitable opportunity of growing in life, of developing, of earning wealth, and achieving buen vivir.
In this section of the video, we discuss the main points of the module in support of parallel modernity. In the first webinar, it is discussed between Southeast Asian countries, São Paulo, and the Netherlands, wherein people led housing illustrations as a citizenship building project and why it works given their context. It is in this that we derive community-level organizations as autonomous, self-driven, creative, and nimble in responding to emerging needs and circumstances of their members. With the second webinar, the Philippines is shown facing a problem with informal settlements and are searching for ways to solve this issue. The settlers started to form a community and applied the People's Plan to decide for their housing and needs, as well as a housing cooperative to grant them a title to the unit they're living through the association. The third webinar details the pros of having women-led community housing projects lies in the social skills and tendencies of women. These social strengths aid in maintaining good relationships with those in the community, resulting in solidarity and participation, all of which are key ingredients in determining the success of such projects as seen in India, Thailand, and in the Philippines. As for the fourth point, buen vivir describes a way of life and a form of development that sees social, cultural, environmental, and economic issues working together and in balance, not separately and hierarchically as at present. Buen vivir thus becomes a tool towards community development. However, for buen vivir to be put into practice, it would require work from multiple perspectives, institutions, and communities from both macro and micro, and overall turning what we know about modernity on its head. Buen vivir also requires a mutual respect for the environment and includes the rights of nature in its ambit. It is through these points that buen vivir places harmony with nature and spirituality as pillars of community development. And it is in this style of community development that does not define progress and growth as the same thing, but one that is separate from one another. This leads us to examine our own understanding of our community practices and also to examine the differing societal and cultural contexts of people in order to fully understand buen vivir as a concept. For the fifth point, Bayat proposes a quiet encroachment to analyze urban living, advancements, and activism within these communities through the lens of a third world country. Bayat proposes that these communities of the marginalized poor have solidarity as a part of their way in living. With quiet encroachment, it is defined as the silent, protracted, but pervasive advancement of the ordinary people on the property, powerful, or the public. in order to survive and improve their lives. This is marked by quiet, largely atomized and prolonged mobilization with episodic collective action. With this, activities under quiet encroachment feed off of the necessity to improve one's lives in the spirit of survival. These advances marked under quiet encroachment become silent and gradual in nature, made upon by individuals slowly moving under the aforementioned drive to improve their own survival. It is in this sense that we establish two goals under quiet encroachment, namely the redistribution of societal goods and the acquisition of autonomy. In this section, we discuss the conceptualization of parallel modernity given the Philippine context. It is in this effect that we derive three major insights from the topics learned throughout Module 5, namely parallel modernity, buen vivir, and quiet encroachment. It is through these things that show us how different societies have developed and asserted their unique expressions of modernity in concrete, alternative ways of living and being. For example, when we turn to applications of quiet encroachment in the country, we can see it taking effect to those around us, especially now during the onset of modernity. One such example is the migration of rural workers and inhabitants towards populated cities within Manila in order to increase their monetary gains. Despite the heavily congested and unmerciful streets of the urban city, many rural inhabitants choose to forego many of their social rights in favor of earning more than they ever could back at their expense. Due to the drive towards improving their lives at the brink of survival, the advancements made in quiet encroachment can be seen in this example as a struggle for attaining this immediate outcome through their own direct actions in the pursuit of autonomy. Another application with regards to parallel modernity when applied to the local context can be seen in the concept of bayanihan. It is in this solidarity and cooperation of Filipino citizens with their neighbors that become a catalyst for local modernity and development. Going back to pre-Hispanic times, Filipinos have had a deep sense of camaraderie with their fellow constituents. Early civilization was formed out of the various roles different sectors of society partook in to provide value for the community. In this, we see that each member of society can look to bayanihan and other values like empathy and selflessness in order to be active and contributing members of the community. Thus, intrinsic Filipino values, which translate for caring for their neighbors and the surrounding environment, are integral to making parallel modernity successful in the Filipino context.
As this video comes to a close, let us reflect back on the concept of parallel modernity. Let us look back at the new lens in which we can view modernity through the lens of third world countries, through the lens of the oppressed and the marginalized, in which through solidarity, togetherness, and cooperation they are able to achieve prosperity and success and development in various fields through the community, by the community, with the community. And as such, this group would like to put forth a framework in which you can apply parallel modernity in your daily lives, in your communities, in your sector of society, which is the 6 C's. This framework anchors on looking at that individual and giving them a guide in which they can practice values, principles, and morals that can be a benefit to themselves as well as the people around them. The first C being cooperation. Like it's been said, through solidarity, cooperation, and togetherness, we can achieve community-led projects by being able to work with one another, to be able to represent each sector of society towards achieving that development and prosperity. Next is critical thinking. Critical thinking in the manner of being aware of what's around you, being able to question what is around you, being able to understand what is most beneficial for you as an individual as well as those who are around you. As we each reflect on our role in society, we will come to understand that we each have a perspective. And through critical thinking, we can amplify that perspective to be beneficial for those around us. Next is curiosity. Curiosity is similar to critical thinking, in which we are able to be aware and question and seek to understand what is happening around us. Parallel modernity is hooked on the idea and is anchored on the concept of having a different perspective of the world, different from the Western Hemisphere. And thus, curiosity will allow us to seek knowledge, seek experience, seek understanding, in which, again, we can benefit those who are around us. And reflecting on these first three concepts, you go to the second half, starting with clarity. Clarity obviously is there for us to be unified. Without clarity of goals, without clarity of understanding, without clarity of perspective, we will begin to impede one another. We will begin to hurt one another. The lack of clarity is what got us here in the first place. Countries like the Philippines who have lost their concept of identity, their concept of origin, because we were not clear enough in our goals. And being selfless and empathetic towards others is a part of this. Having clarity through parallel modernity, or parallel modernity through clarity, is giving the individual, the sector of society, the community, and the rest of the nation a goal that they can strive towards. Thus, clarity is necessary. And as we continue this second half of the 6 C's, we look at consistency. Consistency as a means for us to always apply pressure on that pulse, to always be on the dot when trying to achieve prosperity, to achieve buen vivir. It is not enough for us to commit on 1 day, or 1 week, or 1 year, or maybe even a decade or a century. Concepts like parallel modernity will take a lot of longevity for us to further develop, innovate, learn, understand, and question our beliefs, our notions, our ideas, our technology, our values, our principles. So being consistently curious, being consistently clear, being consistently cooperative, being consistently critical is necessary for us to never stop learning, to never stop developing, to never stop being parallel towards the opposite hemisphere, towards those who have been privileged, those who have amassed a vast amount of power and influence. And lastly is creativity. Creativity being the concept of parallel modernity itself, a creative and a different way to view the world and modernity. It is not in subscribing to the Western philosophies, ideologies, beliefs, technologies, innovations that we are able to prosper. It is not a one-size-fits-all. There's no one best or only or true view of modernity. And in understanding that, we can put forth that creativity towards contextualizing modernity through the marginalized sectors of society and flipping over perspectives, breaking beliefs, destroying stereotypes and stigmas. We are able to find loopholes towards high concentrations of powers, to decentralize information, to utilize technology. All takes creativity. Overall, the 6 C's is here as a framework to challenge your beliefs, yet also emphasize how those beliefs are beneficial to society. You right now watching this video as an active member of society who can think, who can act, who can speak, who can believe, has the ability to affect those who are around you. And this is what parallel modernity needs. Leaders like you who are able to influence people, to achieve that prosperity, to be clear with their thoughts, to be cooperative with the people around them, to be critical of the knowledge they hold, to be curious about the knowledge around them, to be consistent in acting, and to be creative in finding creative solutions to creative problems. And hopefully, in the future, we may continue to use this framework as well as parallel modernity to change to be together, to unite, to empower, and to believe in one another, as prosperity is not something an individual can achieve alone. It will always take multiple people working together in a consistent manner, creatively, and those people being critical and curious of one another and the knowledge around them to achieve this prosperity. And in utilizing parallel modernity, we look at the other side of the coin, we flip the world upside down, and we just change our perspective, look through a different lens in order to achieve whatever we want to achieve. Thank you.